So in the last video, I looked at the writer intent and public reaction to this episode. Next, I'll break down the plot to some key elements that I think refer to important indicators for Daniel Salazar's internal and external arc. The fantastic hard cut to black I noted in the Walking Dead vs. Fear the Walking Dead lecture comes in at 42 minutes and 21 seconds when played without ads. I'll be breaking down this episode from the perspective of an adless runtime. Daniel's brain is not only trying to work something out for himself throughout the episode, but he's also looking for something from others, and we have absolutely no waste here in the cut to black once the question is answered. We have a collision of all the concepts noted in my Walking Dead v Fear lecture, such as moral injury, wound, ghost, persona and shadow, played out neatly in a number of setups and payoffs. For our purposes here, we can interpret moral injury as a previous act that violates some deeply held value of the person who committed it. A persona would be the mask used to protect us from recognizing such a violation. The wound here would therefore be the wound of moral injury and the ghost of both Daniel's haunting El Salvadorian backstory and his more recent actions at Cecilia's compound. You can watch my previous lecture for a fuller description of the shadow, but in Daniel's case this is complicated by his US barber persona, which effectively suppresses the darker shadow aspects of his character when he leaves El Salvador. We have a key line from the script with Strand in the conversation at 34 minutes. This line confirms he's making an almost conscious decision to switch from what he feels is a false persona, that is a false mask made for a particular purpose, to a genuine one. A belief in his true character that is part of his wound. This switch comes in a timely manner for the immediate request by Dante that he attend to the torture / interrogation of Ephraim. With the final cut at 42 minutes, the temporal midpoint of the episode is therefore the moral problem revealed by Daniel's question on why everyone is dying of thirst if the dam works at 21 minutes, revealing the cruelty that will be part of Daniel's catalyst for his negative character change. Here, as with the Otto Ranch main A plot, water comes to signify both survival and cooperation, or lack of, and we can sense Daniel will be linked to the ranch via water. The bridge crossing of the midpoint definitely mirrors the dam, in quotes, of Daniel's final character turn, a dam that is metaphorically released here and literally in the finale. This and the previous season therefore use water and fire respectively as mirrored symbols for their finales. Daniel walks from last season's finale fire destruction to this season's finale of water destruction, and at 3 minutes 38 he meets Jesse Borrego as Ephraim, the water giver. We can see immediately there is both a religious and horror trope callback to more supernatural horror movies. Ephraim almost mistakes Daniel for a walker. He takes his hood off and strikes a fairly iconographic religious pose with hands out. E.g., we have this priest/exorcist telling Daniel at 4 minutes 30 he's dying, with Daniel technically in need of exorcism, water and possibly last rites. At 5 minutes, a hand out and clasped, a request for water. If we look at this as a request for resources or kindness from a stranger, we can see subtle setups of being let in. We have a series of mirrored setups here that are all essentially paid off throughout, but majorly in the last scene. Daniel has suffered one moral injury at Cecilia's compound, in which she personally offered them her resources, but he again bit the hand that feeds and continues to do so, almost like a temperamental dog, echoing Dante's last lines. At 9 minutes, Lola holds a razor blade. They must cut away the rotten flesh. Now this, as the episode progresses, becomes obvious as a mirroring of internal and external arc, yet still beautiful despite its transparency, and is again something that is paid off in the final scene. The pain is necessary, in fact akin to torture, and mirrors the selection of torture tools Daniel selects from later. The message is that the search for genuine psychological redemption will be close to torture. At 11:40, Ephraim officially invites him into his home, lets him in, which foreshadows the split in the two selves and Dante's last lines to Daniel. We should consider both addresses to Daniel from Dante and Ephraim as mirrors of Daniel's deep anxiety over his own identity. He lets people in like his daughter and they inevitably suffer. And he of course is here because he let the Clark family in. The mirroring of Ephraim and Dante is foreshadowed but not telegraphed, e.g. not revealed until the final scene, so we have a setup here at 11 minutes that is paid off at 42 minutes. At 13:15, Ephraim makes a pretty on-the-nose statement comparing the rotten flesh of Daniel to an internal rot of moral injury. It is potentially more obvious because the physical excising needed was only experienced by the viewer just 4 minutes previously. The compact nature of all of this would lead me to say that reviewers who have called this episode slow are in fact wrong. It is paced well, and in fact, if anything, some of the lines are too close in time, especially the Daniel Lola, Daniel Strand exchanges, for the mirroring to be as subtle as it could have been. Daniel confesses this moral injury to Ephraim, which sets up more mirrored payoffs later, but calls back and pays off the intimacy of both what Lola has already done for Daniel and what he observed Ephraim doing for the zombies in the first minutes. This reinforces the intimate scene with Ephraim as a priest hearing confession. It also signals that the nature of his killings were intimate and specific, and he literally carries the number. Referring back to the first lecture, Jonathan Shea makes a distinction between door gunners and snipers in comparison to general ground troops. The first category tend to actually see every kill, which leads to a greater possibility of moral injury. At 1848, the Deus Ex Machina lightning strike to the top of the walker's head, indicating that he is yet again receiving benevolence, just not from a human being. At 2013, Daniel resurrects, jumps up suddenly, very New Testament symbolism here again, inside a sewer outhole. Water took him from Ephraim to Dante. At 21 minutes, the central moral problem reflecting Daniel's history in El Salvador, e.g. this is not now communism, the communism he opposed back then. At 24 minutes, Daniel has a conflict with JC, whose initials I assume cannot be an accidental writer choice. Daniel meets Dante, who finds his lip tattoo. This is a significant plot turn. Dante mirrors Ephraim by indicating Daniel is now a guest. At 28 minutes, and he's in the patrol he was earlier hiding from, driving to the home he was given shelter in by Ephraim. The cliche and expectation at this point is for the viewer to reflect on the kindness Ephraim showed to Daniel, reflect on Daniel's still effective though diminished skills, and see that there is no contest in an interpersonal choice between Ephraim and JC. However, we have the unlikely timing of this raid. Daniel is put under pressure as he gazes at the clock. You get the classic meta-narrative here on independence and interdependence, the one and the many, and in the end, as he explains to Lola, he makes the utilitarian choice, giving up his friend to avert attention away from the fountain. So at 30 minutes, that choice, and we can easily riff here now on does choice reveal true character, but I see a lot of those sort of conversations as intellectual dead ends. At 33 minutes, Daniel hands Strand a flask of water through the bars, mirroring Ephraim's initial kindness to Daniel and foreshadowing Strand's mirroring of Daniel's betrayal of Ephraim in the season finale. Strand is telling Daniel where Ophelia is, a lie, but Daniel reacts like an interrogator torturer, whereas with Ephraim in the next scene, which is literally an interrogation and torture, Daniel doesn't want him to identify Lola, but pretends he does. Ophelia is dead, her father is dead, and so are you. Again, like he is himself in Dante's Inferno, not actually dead, but between life and death. At 36:14, secretly to Ephraim, if you talk, they'll kill you, and then her. If you don't talk, I'm going to kill you. I can only offer to kill you as fast as I can. And then Daniel, forgive me, with an eerie callback. This, of course, now mirrors Daniel's confession earlier when he cries, "Confess, confess." At 39 minutes, the final scene, a hood is removed, the sun mirroring Daniel's earlier coming to in Lola's apartment. Daniel closes the loop in this new environment, his new identity, by killing the one person who found him at the mouth of the sewer. But now, at 41 minutes, he is stood there with Lola's life in his hands, frozen, unable to act.